As we get closer and closer to the college football season, we still have to be cognizant of the many recruiting battles going on across the nation. And today, I wanted to take a look at one of the most impactful recruiting battles in the nation right now, and that's for five-star cornerback Denver Harris, the top 10 player in the class of 2022, the five-star cornerback out the state of Texas. But I wanted to focus on the four schools that he has listed as his top four, as well as talk about some of the crystal ball predictions inserted on 24/7 Sports and what that ultimately means. But before we do, as always, y'all know the drill. I want to hear from y'all. Hop down in the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. And given the fact that two of the three crystal ball predictions on 24/7 Sports are in favor of the Crimson Tide, do you believe that Alabama is in a prime position to lock up one of the nation's most coveted players? Let me know what you're thinking there. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. I have a lot of cool stuff planned for the season. You don't want to miss any of it, and I would love to have you a part of this journey. And if you enjoy this content, be sure to like and comment down below. Those interactions are massive to content creators such as myself. But with all of that being said, let's talk about Denver Harris, one of the most coveted players in the nation, a top 10 player, and a absolute stud at the cornerback position. Denver Harris is an incredibly talented individual, and there's a reason why every institution in the nation would love nothing more than to have him a part of their 22 cycle. But the four schools remaining are all really going to be starting to heat things up, especially with the season coming into the fold, and they can get these kids on campus for visits while they're is a game, showing them that game time atmosphere, which is really an awesome experience for everybody involved. But what a time to be a recruit going into this where the last year has been filled with all of these anomalies as far as the pandemic. Now you're getting back to some normalcy and you can take those game day visits. That has to be awesome. But the four institutions remaining are all institutions that are going to be pulling out all of the stops for Denver Harris. The Texas Longhorns, the Texas A&M Aggies, LSU Tigers, and the Alabama Crimson Tide are the four schools that we are now watching as it pertains to the Denver Harris battle. And let's go through each of them, and we can start with the two home state schools in the Texas Longhorns and Texas A&M, because both of these institutions are going to be working overtime to try and keep Denver Harris at home, because the state of Texas has got a ton of talent, and they are trying everything they can to keep all of that talent in state, but maybe none more so than Denver Harris because of what he means to both of these classes, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. For the Texas A&M Aggies, TJ Rushing has been doing a phenomenal job in 21 with their defensive back recruiting. Whether we're talking Bobby Taylor, Bryce Anderson, or the newest addition of Dayon Bowie, the Aggies and TJ Rushing have done a really solid job as it pertains to recruiting that defensive back position. Remember, we talked the other day, Jimbo Fisher and the Aggies have been hosting multiple super events with a lot of top-name guys coming. So Texas A&M has been able to attribute themselves to a lot of positive attention. And because of that, it's going to be very interesting to see how they can turn that hype that they've been getting into more recruits. Now, the battle for Denver Harris for them is going to be interesting because they're also battling in-state rival Texas. Texas is an institution who A&M has a lot of familiarity with in a battle just this year with Bryce Anderson, another top-ranked DB. But now the Texas Longhorns are in a position where they lost on Bryce Anderson, which only highlights the importance of Denver Harris. I understand they didn't play the same position, but you still lost out on a top-ranked DB, and now you're going to try and get a different top-ranked DB. Denver Harris would be an absolutely incredible get for the Texas Longhorns class. And Jeff Banks and Terry Joseph are the two recruiters for Texas that are hot on the trail of Denver Harris. Now, the one thing that I think Texas and Texas A&M get to recruit and pitch to Denver Harris is you can be a part of something really big and stay home in Texas. The Texas Longhorns are going to be pitching that with the new coaching staff, with Sark and all the new hires, that this is going to be a team that can really surge into the future. However, I think the only thing holding Texas back right now is recruits want to see it on the field. and they need to see that hype translate into on-field results. So that's why the early games for Texas are so important, and they don't exactly have an easy outing with Louisiana and then Arkansas, two teams who I know some people are going to be overlooking, but please don't. Those are both solid teams. Arkansas much improved last year, a team that we really need to watch this year, and Louisiana, I mean, they're really well coached, very talented, a really tough outing for week one. But I think as it pertains to Texas, as I said, these recruits are wanting to see the results put on the field. As it pertains to A&M, it's all about how they're going to rebound after last season's incredible finish, because the Aggies had a sensational season last year, and now we're just looking to how they're going to translate that going forward into this season. The two other schools in this battle, the LSU Tigers and the Alabama Crimson Tide, anytime you're in a top flight recruiting battle and you hear those names, I don't feel like any explanation needs to be given. We know what LSU does on the recruiting trail. We know what Alabama does on the recruiting trail. Alabama just bagged the greatest recruiting class of all time in this 2021 cycle, and they are still a top 10 ranked class right now and look to just be getting started when we look at the numbers relative to their class as it pertains to other top 10 classes. So we know what LSU and Alabama do, but let's take a minute and really dive deep into both of their battles for Denver Harris. And if we start with LSU, LSU is sending Corey Raymond after Denver Harris. Corey Raymond is synonymous with DB production. This is an individual that has a laundry list of incredibly talented guys he's recruited to LSU and then sent to the league. This is an individual that when you see Corey Raymond on a list recruiting a DB, you know you're in for it. He has all the clout in the world you could want for that DB position, and as such, he makes any battle for a DB very difficult. LSU has a history with the DB position, but Corey Raymond is that dude when it comes to recruiting DBs. In fact, just go to 24/7 Sports, click his name, and see the list of guys he's pulled. It is incredibly impressive, and because of that, anytime you see that in a DB battle, you know you're in for it. And then finally, the Alabama Crimson Tide, the team that has gotten 2 crystal ball predictions in their favor in recent weeks, one of them coming from 24/7 Sports' Steve Wiltfong, which is usually a pretty big deal whenever you see that Wiltfong crystal ball. However, I'm not here contending that either of these crystal balls mean Denver is a lock to Alabama. We all understand recruiting far deeper than that, but it is a good sign. It shows that Alabama is really trending in the right direction, which is exactly what you want to hear if you are an Alabama fan. I think Alabama gets to double down on this because they get Jay Valai from Texas, who already had an understanding of not only the state of Texas, but also Denver Harris, as he was trying to get Denver a part of that Texas class when he was the Texas DB coach, but also because Nick Saban wants Denver Harris very bad. And I talked about in one of my very first videos pertaining to Denver Harris that Denver had said in a past interview that it was unbelievable getting to spend time with Saban and getting to talk to somebody who is considered the greatest coach at their respective institution and in their respective sport. Nick Saban is the greatest college football coach who's ever coached the game. And so when you're an individual such as Denver Harris, getting to talk to him, getting to play for him means a lot. But it means even more when that coach is also the coach of the position group that you're going to be entering that institution at if he chooses to enter into the University of Alabama. Because yes, Jay Valai is the defensive backs coach, but Nick Saban is still very spry. Nick Saban is still out there working with the defensive back. So you know if you are a defensive back and you come to Alabama, you are going to be getting personally worked with by the GOAT himself, which, as tough as a pitch it is to go against Corey Raymond, you talk about a really tough pitch to turn down. When you look at Alabama's history of sending DBs into the league, and then you get that pitch of, oh, well, the greatest coach of all time will be working with you personally. That's a really tough pitch to say no to, and this is coming to an individual who is one of the most coveted players in the nation in Denver Harris. This is going to be an awesome battle for us to watch because every institution listed wants nothing more than to get him a part of their 22 class, and it is going to be an incredible battle for us to keep up with going down the stretch. Hop down in the comments, let me know what you ultimately think is going to happen in this battle because this is a recruiting battle that I am going to be watching very closely. That's it. See ya.